LSU's landed its biggest transfer portal addition yet. We got to talk about it. It's bonus coverage of Locked On LSU. Let's go.
You are Locked On LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked On LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks for making us your first listen. We are free, available wherever you get podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. LSU just keeps hitting homers in the transfer portal, and the biggest win to date. On Tuesday evening, LSU made it official, announcing they have signed former Oklahoma wide receiver Nic Anderson, and LSU has now its true number one game-breaking wide receiver. And not only did they land Nic Anderson, this is from an SEC school who you will play next year, and you beat Texas A&M for him. So it was either going to be LSU or Texas A&M, and the Tigers win again. I am going to tell you about Nic Anderson, but before I go any further, this is not a victory lap, okay? But I have to make you understand why in this moment it is so important to understand how LSU got to this moment. We are right now, right at a little more than a week after the transfer portal has been open. I mean, we are talking about 8 days since the portal opened, and LSU has transformed its roster already by adding 9 impact players via the portal, 9 starting caliber players via the portal, not bodies, impact guys out of the portal. Go back just a couple of weeks to the early signing period. When everybody ebbed, I flowed. When everybody panicked, I said patience. And it wasn't like I was just pumping sunshine. The thing, and this isn't a back pat, this isn't an I told you so. Please don't misunderstand it. It's just to illustrate the point of how LSU got here, because it's also going to illustrate how they are going to move forward in building this roster. And the thing I told you about what LSU did was they exercised fiscal responsibility. It sucked watching Michigan pry Bryce Underwood away. It sucked watching Texas flip Cade Phillips the night before signing day. It sucked watching Jakeem Stewart sign with USC. But the thing that I told you then, and the great thing about the digital era is it don't even have to be I told you so. Go back and watch any of those episodes or listen to any of those episodes of Locked On LSU. The point I made was, as much as that sucked, what that allowed, that fiscal responsibility, not overpaying for freshmen, what that allowed was for LSU to be flush with cash, to be able to do what they are doing right now. It's hard to see at the time the sacrifice. Think about anything in your life when you have sacrificed. If you got in shape, think about how many times your alarm clock went off at 5 a.m. so you could get up and work out. How many times when everybody else was eating cake and drinking beer, you were eating salads and drinking water. Think about any sacrifice you have ever made in your life to have a benefit down the road. That's what LSU did. They had a plan. They had a financial plan. What they were willing to spend on Bryce Underwood, what they were willing to spend on Jakeem Stewart, what they were willing to spend on Cade Phillips, the rest of this class, what they had in NIL, what they had coming in revenue share. They had mapped it out. They had planned it. They knew what they could afford. It's like a family. It's like a family going on vacation. Yeah, you could fly first class and stay at a premium hotel, or you could fly coach and stay at a great property in the town of your destination and still have an amazing time. But that one little sacrifice allowed you to get that much closer to retirement, or whatever the case may be. But it's fiscal responsibility. something college programs have never had to consider before, but they do now. And that fiscal responsibility is what gave LSU an extra couple of $1 million, and they were already planning on being very aggressive in this transfer portal cycle. But they could have done one of two things. They could have said, you know what? We want Bryce Underwood so badly, we're going to take money away from everything else we had planned to do to throw it at this kid. Or the same thing with Jakeem Stewart or Cade Phillips, who instead they said, you know what? We're going to take that money and allocate it to the transfer portal and be more effective there. And look at what this has netted to this point. Depending on what service you subscribe to, LSU has the number 1 or number 2 portal class. Look at what you just did. Nic Anderson is the number 10 overall player in the portal according to 24/7. He's number 11, I believe, at On3. He is the best wide receiver in the transfer portal. I'm going to tell you about Nic Anderson, but understand, when you look at all the players you've gotten so far, Nic Anderson, number 10 in the portal. These are courtesy of 24/7. Barian Brown, number 18. This is overall. Any player in the portal. There are 2,000 players in the transfer portal. Nic Anderson is the 10th best player. Barian Brown is 18th. Mansour Delane is 38th. Jack Pyburn, 45th. Braylon Moore, the center from Virginia Tech, who hasn't formally announced yet, but everyone's got him projected to LSU, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. He's number 50. Jakeem Jackson, 73. Michael Van Buren, 100. Jabari Butler, 134. Bauer Sharp, number 140. I just rattled off 9 names. All of them are in the top 40. Last year in the portal cycle, you had one player. CJ Daniels, number 101, was your highest rated portal player. This year, you've got 8 guys already ranked higher than that, and they ain't done. They're still going to add at least 2 offensive linemen, and they're going to get safety help, and that may not come until after the college football playoff. The offensive linemen are going to come much sooner. Trust me on that. The offensive linemen are going to come sooner, but safety may come after the college football playoff. That's been a little harder than they thought. But look at what you have been able to do, and it's because you are responsible. You are fiscally responsible, and you took that extra money, that surplus, and were able to put it toward this portal cycle to do what you're doing right now. So I ask you, would you rather 18-year-old Bryce Underwood, who wouldn't take a meaningful snap for you in 2025? Would you rather 17-year-old Jakeem Stewart, who's played 10 high school football games, reclassified? By the way, the top defensive lineman in the country for 2024 was L.J. McCray, who signed with Florida. He had 12 tackles and a half a sack in his freshman year. The next highest ranked defensive lineman was Williams Nwaneri, the 5-star, who went to Missouri, had 2 tackles and played in 4 games, took a red shirt. And by the way, those were guys that played their senior year of high school. You want to put $2 million into Jakeem Stewart? Or would you rather go and get Jakeem Jackson instead of overpaying for Cade Phillips? Do you understand the point now? Fiscal responsibility is why LSU is where they are. Hat tip to Brian Kelly, to Austin Thomas, to everyone who put this together, because if they stopped right now, if they didn't add another player in the portal, they are dramatically better than they were when they walked off the field against Oklahoma in the regular season finale. Now, I got to tell you about Nic Anderson. I've gone on for 9 minutes now. I haven't even told you about the guy they got. So we'll do that as we continue Locked on LSU, your team every day. What an amazing time, y'all. It's that time of year. The college football playoff is back, and with the newly expanded 12-team format, it's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT Sports coverage of the college football playoff begins December 21st, starting with the college football playoff kickoff show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern. Leading into our first matchup, the Southern Methodist University Mustangs battling the Penn State Nittany Lions at noon Eastern. Then the Clemson Tigers look to upset the Texas Longhorns in a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch the College Football Playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. Today's show is also brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Okay, let me tell you about Nic Anderson now. We have talked about him a little bit, but for those that aren't familiar, I'll tell you why I am so excited, why he's a top 10 player in this portal cycle, and why he is exactly a missing piece of the puzzle that is now filled for LSU. In the class of 2022, Nic Anderson was just a 3-star, and you may shrug your shoulders and roll your eyes at that. He's out of Katy, Texas, which is west of Houston. He goes to Oklahoma in 2022 and plays in just 3 games. But in 2023, Nic Anderson played in 13 games, starting 6 of them, caught 31 balls and 10 touchdowns, 21 yards per reception. Let me say this another way so you don't miss it. He caught 31 passes, 10 of them were touchdowns. 1 out of every 3 receptions was a touchdown. He averaged 21 yards a carry, 21 yards a reception. That is on par with what Jamar Chase did in his Biletnikoff season in 2019. So what happened in 2024? Quad injury cost him the season and didn't get on the field for Oklahoma, entered the transfer portal. So what you have here is the thing Brian Kelly said repeatedly throughout the year that LSU was missing, the true deep threat that could stretch the field in the offense. It's why we talked so much about Chris Hilton all year. As great as Kyron Lacey was, as great as Aaron Anderson was with the big plays, big moments, as sure-handed as CJ Daniels was, what you lacked was Brian Thomas Jr., the guy that was a big-bodied receiver that could stretch the field and make a defense respect his ability to blow the top off. LSU did not have that in 2024. They got it now. The other thing, when you look at LSU before Nic Anderson, when you look at LSU's receivers for 2025, they got plenty of numbers. Aaron Anderson, Barian Brown coming in from Kentucky. You return Chris Hilton, Xavier Thomas. Kyle Parker's coming back off of injury. You're bringing in Teron Francis and Phillip Wright. Kylan Billiot and Jelani Watkins will have their redshirt freshman season. They also added Destin Hill on Tuesday, the transfer from Florida State. You got numbers. Your numbers are fine. What you were lacking was a true game-breaking number 1. You check that box now. And of the numbers, of the names I just rattled off, the 10 receivers I just rattled off, Barian Brown at 6'1" was your biggest wide receiver. Now, I could throw in a caveat and say Trey'Dez Green, who's 6'7", but Trey'Dez Green's a tight end who they moved to receiver, and we'll see where he plays next year and how all that works out. But if you're talking about a true receiver, Barian Brown at 6'1" was your biggest receiver, was. Now, at 6'4", 219 pounds, you have not only your biggest receiver, but your fastest receiver and your game-breaking receiver in Nic Anderson. And let me remind you again, the team you beat out was Texas A&M. Now, They got some questions about their ability to throw the football. LSU don't have that. You got Garrett Nussmeier coming back, and LSU was among the leaders in the SEC in the country in pass attempts per game this season. Now, we want to see more balance. We want to see more ability to run the football. But if you're Nic Anderson, you know LSU's going to sling the ball, and you know you got a quarterback that's going to sling it to him, and you know they were missing a true deep threat, and you fill that void immediately. So, yeah, there was playing time, but there was also money. There was money. Because LSU, in being fiscally responsible with its freshman class, still inked a top 10 class, had enough money left over to make sure they had an attractive enough package for Garrett Nussmeier to stay, and enough of a surplus, an extra $2 million they were sitting on to go sign the best transfer portal class in the country, and that's what they're doing. Tigers already have 9 in the boat in this transfer portal cycle. They signed 9 a year ago. I'd venture a guess that these 9 are all more impactful than the 9 they signed a year ago, and they're not done. Tigers are going to add at least 2 offensive linemen, among them Braylon Moore, and they're going to add a tackle as well. Mark my word, book it, take it to the bank, take it to church, take it wherever you want. They're going to add a tackle as well, an offensive tackle, and they're going to get a safety. Safety's been harder to come by, but that's where they stand right now. Incredible start. Incredible start. So I ask you, go back to how you felt about this football team on signing day. When Bryce Underwood picked Michigan, when Jakeem Stewart picked USC, when Cade Phillips flipped to Texas. Think about how you felt that day. And when I sat right here at this desk and I told you, fiscal responsibility, as much as it sucks to lose those guys, it's the right thing not to overpay for those young players and to sink those resources into proven veteran players that can help you win in 2025. And it's working. The plan's working. They're not done. They got a lot of heavy lifting to do. You still got to replace Slade Nagel on staff, and you still got to bring this team together. But this is going to be a team with dramatically better talent in 2025 than they had in 2024, and a team that we can realistically start to say should be in the college football playoff in 2025. And you know we'll be here talking about it every step of the way. Okay, that'll do it for us on this bonus episode of Locked on LSU. Y'all do me a favor, if you're on podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app, rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video, and let a friend know if they love the Tigers. We got you every single day for Locked on LSU, your team every day.